Welcome to They Think It's All Sober, Savannah Simms.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good. Podcast number 2 of the day.
Podcast number 2.
We limit these to 2 now. In season 3 and 4, we were doing like 3 or 4 a day.
I said downstairs, it's like...
Yeah, emotionally, an emotional battlefield. So
I left like crying.
2's great. We'll leave it with you for today, and that's totally fine.
Nice one. I'm honoured to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And so I guess let's just dive straight in, to be honest. I think, for all of our guests, I think it's really good to get a bit of context about how alcohol kind of played a part in your life, perhaps when you were younger. So we normally step into Jamie's trusty time machine.
Okay, my time machine this morning was dog shit. So I'm going to try and make this... I'm going to go a little... Probably, I feel like I need to recalibrate this time machine. I need to do a bit of technical service on it, but okay, we're in the time machine. Boom, doors shut. Okay.
Improvement.
Don't laugh.
There was an improvement.
You're laughing.
Yeah, you're getting absolutely cussed out right now.
Oh man, season 5's over. It's over. I quit.
I love the time machine.
Thank you very much.
So, young Savannah, what were your first memories of alcohol?
So I started drinking from about 14.
Yeah.
And it was just really easy because I grew up in London, but if there's nothing to do after school, we just ended up in the park. I think some people who live in the country would probably ended up in the field. We were just in the local park. And we'd go to this shopkeeper, and I remember him saying, "Oh, cheeky today," and he knew that we were like way underage, but he always served us, which in hindsight is pretty bad. So yeah, getting in the park, drinking loads with a little like portable speaker, and then it kind of like turned to, stealing vodka from, dad's cabinet, filling it up with water, because they weren't really like spirit drinkers, they were beer drinkers.
It was like one of those things that's like in the house.
You know what I mean? So just kind of like for show, never touched until like, so yeah, that was my first memories of drinking.
So pretty typical teen drinking, I suppose, from, park drinking.
Yeah.
And what was the sort of drink of choice then? Was it just like vodka mixes or straight, or beer, cider?
I think at that time, which I can't fathom now, would be like toffee apple ciders and do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I've never heard of that before.
I have.
Yeah, Brothers
toffee apple cider.
Yeah, Brothers toffee apple ciders.
I was gonna, in my head I was like, I want to try that. No, I don't. No, I don't.
No, not anymore. And Baileys, anything sweet that a kid would, I guess, like. Do you know what I mean? And then mixing it up with like the Ribenas and stuff like that.
So I guess a question there then. So, because we often talk about the purpose of alcohol, and I would assume that from the sweetness of the drinks, maybe the taste of alcohol wasn't something that you maybe enjoyed, like the rawness of alcohol. So what was the function of alcohol for you and your friends at this time at 14?
Just to get off our trolley, really, just to feel something outside of ourselves. And I'd say I kind of like hung out with all the outcasts that came together who were bullied in primary school and like found their clique in secondary school and in A-levels. And then we just were able to come out of our shells a bit more. So it just became the prime focus of our social club,
Yeah. And do you remember the first time of like feeling the alcohol? Do you remember what it felt like?
I can't remember, if I'm truly honest. But I know that I didn't like the feeling of getting drunk.
Right.
I like the tipsy feeling, but I didn't like the feeling of getting drunk. And that's when I found narcotics and the game changed.
Interesting. Because I actually think now, after we've talked about this a lot, and I feel like that feeling that everyone who's enjoyed alcohol in some capacity has always enjoyed the feeling of being tipsy, which is like probably the 2 to 3 drink ratio, which then beyond that, I think everyone's just always chasing that feeling again, but then it just keeps getting worse, right?
Yeah. Well, and some people can be happy with that. And there's some of us that are programmed differently.
Yeah, fuck you, those people.
Add a 0 to those 2 drinks and suddenly it's 3 days later.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting because like, I think that's very typical of a lot of people, I think, you know, enjoying the feeling of being a bit tipsy and having that little, you know, couple of drink buzz. And like you said, Jamie, like, unfortunately for most people, they can go, well, that's cool. For others, they can't. So
I wasn't
interesting.
that
So yeah, I guess you're saying, you know, all of the kind of like outcast people at school, we sort of found each other, had this kind of clique. And then, so what age did the sort of like narcotics come in?
Narcotics started around A levels, so I'd say 16. And that started with like ecstasy, MDMA. I went to a lot of squat raves. And I was like, whoa, this feeling is so cool. And it went from kind of doing it every weekend as you do to like, I lived on my own from quite young for a little while as well. So I just ended up doing it isolated by myself. I think when you're in that squat rave scene as well, at such a young age, you gravitate towards older people.
Yeah.
So I kind of moved away from, you know, my A-level friends a bit, and then found this older group of people who were like selling and just had all these things I've never tried before. It was like Candyland for me back in those days.
It's really interesting actually, because we've had so many guests on that are from rural places, and they always say like, you know, the drinks in the park kind of led to the pub, and then it was like they'd try and find the thing around. We haven't had many guests, or maybe one I can think of, that were from London and in the London culture and exposed to it from such an early age. Did you feel like you had to present as older, and did kind of that connection with drugs and drink like, how did that feel in that scene? Because the squat rave thing is really fascinating to me, because I think there are people from 16 all the way up to, I guess, 60, right? It's a whole array of people.
Yeah, I feel like I've always had to be older because I've worked from the age of 14, you know. I had to be quite independent from quite a young age anyway. And I think as I got older, I just naturally gravitate towards the older crowd. I think there was a thing where it'd be like in A levels for lunch, we'd sit in the pub and like be around surrounded by the old people, and you kind of felt like a big gal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, does that answer your question? Yeah, like I felt like I did have to be quite a lot more mature as you were. Do you know what I mean? By doing these things that adult people did.
Yeah.
A lot quicker, a lot faster. Also, like, let's be honest, like, it was a generation of watching Skins. Like, it was bound to happen. You know, when you're watching things on TV on Channel 4 and stuff, where it's like, yeah, partying's cool. Oops, sorry.
That's quite interesting though, because I think we've had a lot of guests on. I think the path has gone from drink to perhaps cocaine and like functional use of cocaine and stuff, but we haven't had many guests on the, I suppose, like the MDMA. You can say you've been sober for 3 years, bro. Jesus. MDMA, ecstasy. And amongst, like, I definitely think amongst my group of mates growing up, that was like they were the big things that we used to do. It went from that, and actually for me, I think the coke came in later.
Yeah.
But actually it was kind of like these parties, and they might have been like squat parties, but they were like mates parties, and you know, and that was just what everyone was doing. They were just banging pills and MDMA. And I remember, and I don't want to like glamorize it, but I remember like those first like few times of doing it, it was so fun, and that was the draw and attraction to it. But obviously, I think much like we say, like alcohol, you know, and drinking was almost like borrowing tomorrow's happiness. I kind of felt that to an extreme with those drugs. And certainly for myself, come down suddenly became like a thing of absolute hell.
Yeah,
quite
horrendous,
early on.
horrendous.
So, but talk us through that. So you're saying this was probably from like 16, 17.
Yeah.
And how long was this kind of like, you know, going on for?
So 16 to 19, I reckon, was like the MDMA ecstasy squat raving. I was also running like events at like Fire and Lightbox at the time, and I was just really engraved in that world. And it became from, you know, enjoying it at parties, enjoying it at raves, to then isolating and doing it by myself. And the come downs were just horrendous, like exactly like what you mentioned, horrible. And I remember there was a time where I think I called my mate. I don't know how she ended up at my house, to be honest, but I was like in my flat by myself, just like completely like out of it. And I woke up surrounded by my friends, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, this isn't good. you know, I'm taking it to the point where I'm just like, you know, just not on this earth. And I was also going to work, you know, I was working at Tesco's and Sainsbury's and cafes at that time, going to work still on it, going to work like having blackouts, going to work still gurning, you know. I was like, oh, I don't think this is for me anymore. Then I found Coke. And the game changed.
Fascinating.
And I left it, yeah.
Isn't it? I was going to ask as well, like at the time, did you realise that you were kind of functioning in it? Because there was obviously something in you that was like, I've got to work hard, I've got to go to work, I've got to earn money. But I'm quite fascinated, if you don't mind me asking, like, it's MDMA and isolation are two things I haven't really heard linked, because often it's quite a party drug, like you say, you're out with your friends. Do you remember what it gave you that felt like you wanted to take it on your own at home?
It made me at that time just feel warm, you know, like I'd put on my disco lights in my room and my speaker on like loud, and I'd just be staring at the ceiling. I just didn't want to be on earth, if that makes any sense. I just wanted to be just not myself. I just wanted to be out of myself. I wasn't comfortable with my own company.
Right.
You know, I always had to be around people, or I had to be out of it to really like enjoy my own company. It's all different now, thankfully. But yeah, that was my situation back then.
So you you got to 19 and I suppose recognised that it probably wasn't really serving you that well. And, you know, so did you completely give it up, like pills and MDMA?
Yeah, I couldn't even fathom the thought of like taking a pill or, you know, putting Rizzler in my mouth, and couldn't. But I realised that when I was done with that and then I found Coke, I was like, okay, like I said before, I didn't like the feeling of being drunk. Oh my God, I can drink and take this like narcotic and not have the side effects of feeling like I'm drinking, and I can be myself now and, you know, frolic around and speak to people and be like Savannah, you know? So I left the MDMA world behind and I switched drugs. And yeah, 19 to 28 years, I was just on Charlie, which I no longer take now, thank God.
Preach, I'm with you there.
Thank God.
What was, because Coke was 100% my problem, what was it that it gave you other than the drink? Like, did it, and how did it come into your life? Like, what did it give you that first? Do you remember that first sort of line feeling?
Yeah, I remember picking it up I was at my house, and me and my mates were going to Shoreditch, and the person that I used to be friends with at the time was like, oh, you should try this, it's gonna feel like a lot better than like MDMA. And then I remember having like my first line in the toilet, and I was like, whoa, oh my God, like ultimate Savannah, you know what I mean? And with me, I don't have an off switch, like I have no stop button. So as soon as I had it, I was like, I need more, I need more, I need more, I need more. And yeah, as a lot of people we have similar stories, other addicts, it's like you start every weekend, you know, you're working, it's all good, and it just becomes, you know, like I need it. It becomes your medicine.
So in terms of like usage, I guess, you know, like you just said, it starts as a weekend thing, recreational, and then, you know, I guess when it progressed, how many times a week would you say you were using it?
Yeah, it started like a bag would last me, I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, a bag, which would be like 40 to 50, would last me a couple of days, 3 days. As time went on, a bag would last me like an hour. You know, like the tolerance just became more heightened. So yeah, it would be like, I think, you know, you're spending 50 quid a week at most, 60 quid a week at most. And then as the years went on, like you're spending like $2,000 a week. Crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
It's amazing how like that can kind of creep up.
Yeah.
And I mean, how was this having an effect on you in terms of like work life and like, because it's an expensive habit.
Yeah. I think It's so expensive. Oh my God.
However, the one thing I will say is it's the only thing that hasn't gone up with inflation seems to be the price of cocaine. It stayed at 50, 60 quid.
Not that that should be an incentive.
No, it's not an incentive. No, it's bad.
Beat inflation, buy cocaine.
Beat inflation. Oh God.
What was the question again?
Well, I guess like, how were you financially surviving this like at the time?
So, I was really lucky enough to get a really good job at the age of 25.
Right.
I think from 19 to 25, I was like running events, you know, in the rave scene, but still doing the Tesco, Sainsbury's, blah, blah, blah. So it was all right. Like I always had multiple jobs to keep me on my feet. It's when I actually started to make more money, it got worse. Right. So I think like from 24, 25 to 28, it was like, it was a lot because I was making quite a bit, you know. I was, one of the youngest seniors at like one of the largest creative community hubs in Europe. And on top of that, I was running events for like big electronic labels at the time. And, you know, I was doing my own side little hustles and stuff. So, you know, I felt like money it just kept coming in. So it kept coming out quite easily until then I got my first credit card. No! Let's just say that I'm not able to get a credit card now until I pay off my debts, which I'm working on.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was Kim Kardashian.
Right.
And you have to understand, like, I didn't come from a family of money. No one taught me money. No one taught me about investments and putting your money into an ISA and any of that stuff. So when I got it, I was really starry-eyed. I felt like, yeah, I could conquer the world. And I could buy as much Coke as I want and everything will be fine. That was not the case. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm much better with my finances now than ever before. Thank God.
I was the exact same thing of like not coming from a world where I really understood the value of a pound other than struggling with it as a kid. And I was the exact same. When I was 25 and I had two things going on and both were doing really well. I was going to ask a question actually that I certainly found between 25 and 29, 30. It was like, because my friends didn't have the money I did, I almost became the party because I wanted them to do it. Did you find yourself in the same thing? So not only were you funding your own using, you sort of became the person that funded everyone else's as well.
Oh, 100%.
And how did that affect your mental health?
Yeah, definitely. I felt like it's one of those drugs where it's like you don't want to do it by yourself until you end up doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It definitely got to the point where I think I was surrounded by people who had money because I was also like one of the youngest seniors at the time, and I was surrounded by people who, you know, could afford it and had really like stable businesses. And then on the flip side, I had friends who I did party with at the rave who were my age, who weren't making so much, who come to my flat, and my flat would be like the safe haven where people could just come and do whatever they wanted. I was funding a lot of people's habits 100%. And I also didn't want people to feel left out. But in hindsight, did I not want people to feel left out, or did I just want them to be druggies with me? Do you know what I mean?
I'm the exact same.
You know?
Yeah. It was always that thing of, well, for me with Coke was like, and when I knew it subconsciously was a problem before I addressed it being a problem, was when you'd pick up before the night out. So you'd be like, oh, I know where I'm going tonight. I know I'm going to end up here, so I'll buy 3 or 4 just so I've got it on me. And you end up fucking like Santa Claus. That's when it's a problem, not because people often talk about Coke being like, oh, you have 2 beers and you call it in. Yeah. But if you're calling it in before you've even had the beer, it's like fucking hell.
100%. And how it definitely affected my mental health was, I think I put on this persona that I had it all, but realistically, like I'm drowning in debt, like payday loans, credit card, you know, and on the cuff at that time of not being able to pay my bills, but no one knows any different because I'm not telling anyone about it. So it's like and then it's like everyone knows me as, oh, Sav, the party girl, the good vibes. But little do they know, like as soon as you leave my yard or as soon as I come back from the afters, you know, I'm suicidal for like 2-3 days, not wanting to be here anymore. because the come downs were just progressively getting worse and worse. And you kind of realize, oh, I'm left with nothing, you know, and my house is a fucking tip.
Yeah.
And, you know, kind of like squabbling in your own dirt. So, yeah, really happy I'm not in that situation.
Yeah.
Likewise.
I mean, how long were you sort of aware that it was like a problem for you?
You know what's so crazy? Like, as soon as I started, as soon as I started, I knew it was a problem because I had no off switch. And I tell people, you know, at the afters, in the flat, in the rave, in the green room, like, I've got a problem. And people on it, of course, would be like, no, you're young, you're fine. This is just a phase. And I'm like, no, guys, I've actually got a problem.
Yeah.
And again, no, you're okay. And yeah, I always knew I had a problem, because if you're doing it isolated by yourself from such a young age, you know there's something there. Do you know what I mean? But I'm in the 12-step program, and I actually tried to go a couple of times, and I used straight after because I thought it was like quite culty. And I was like, this is not for me. But eventually, yeah, I tried it again, and I was like, I've got nothing else. It's either that or go to rehab. And I haven't got the finances nor the capacity to go to rehab right now. So yeah, I'm doing good.
Interesting. I mean, I suppose, you know, we're trying to like pivot our episodes a little bit to focus more on like the good shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes we're like having these like wonderful deep chats, and then we realize we're 50 minutes in and we've only just got to the point where someone's like, and then I got sober, and we're like, shit, how?
But let's maybe like just to kind of, I suppose, let's talk about the month up until you got sober.
Yeah.
So what did it look like? What was the sort of like the turning point?
Yeah, I was laying in bed, and I was like, I did a few things that were, I was like, no, Sav, you're really going downhill now. And I was like, something needs to change. And I stepped into a Zoom online meeting, and I was like, okay, let's give this a go. And I've not looked back since. I love being sober. I absolutely love it. And it was really hard in the beginning, you know. I had to reach out to some people, make some phone calls, going to meetings consistently. But in the first month, it was like, I was crying, I was sobbing my eyes out. I was like, this is really hard, I can't do this. But after a month, it started to become second nature. And it's so great because I was able to still go to events, run events. I went to 3 months in, I went to Croatia to work at a drum and bass festival. And, you know, I was doing meetings online, and I did it clean 7 days. I was like, if I can do this, anything's possible. Yeah. And that's when I started posting about my sobriety, giving monthly updates about my sobriety, because it was giving me accountability. If I told the world that I was doing this, there's no going back.
And I think especially when you're, I mean, I know for me, I don't know you well enough to say this, but when you're someone who presents in a certain way, that was my thing. If I talk about this online, I want people to think that I'm true to my word and that I'm an honest person and that I'm actually accountable. So for me, that was it. From day one, I was like, I'm doing this. So subconsciously, no one ever called me out on my bullshit in the past. And I actually wanted, if I slipped up, I wanted someone to be like, bro, you said you were doing this thing. And by me posting online, that was my way of being accountable
100%.
To myself, you know.
And it's also like, I never thought it would, but it's inspired people, which I never thought would be the case. When I get messages like, yes, Sav, I'm 2 weeks sober, 6 months sober, big up Sav, I'm like, what? This is crazy. You know, people are really trying in music and out of music, and I'm so proud of them. And being sober has given me my life back. I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying my own company. I go to the cinema by myself. I'm going to theme park with friends. I'm dancing around the house, cooking by myself. I'm like, oh my God, I've got this light in me that I thought I needed Coke and alcohol to give me, but ultimately I can find things that give me that natural Coke feeling without the need of doing it. And I think that's when I started to take my career really seriously in the first 3 months. And get on DJing, and I'm like, you know, I was diagnosed with ADHD 3 months into my sobriety, which is so great because now I have more of an insight of like my impulsive decisions and how I connect and communicate with people in the world. I just feel like I'm fixing myself in so many ways that I never thought I'd ever accomplish. I'm like, even like I'm not feeling very well now, the fact that I'm here with you guys present, I would have fobbed this off. I wouldn't be here. I'd be in bed recovering for 3 to 4 days. But I'm just so dedicated to wanting to just be better and do better.
That's amazing. And how long into your journey are you now?
I'm 7 months and something days.
Nice. Amazing. So I think it's really great capturing you at this sort of moment in your journey, because we have people on from we had James Newman on at, was it 2 months?
2 months, yeah.
2 months, which was like quite fresh. We had I think that was probably, then we've had like people on like Rob Harvey, who's been sober
22 years.
Like 22 years. Mad. And you're like, he's like the sober Jedi.
Yeah.
And but actually, I think because like half of our listeners still drink and are sober curious, and are like, because we did this podcast, I think it's not exclusively for people that are sober. I think it's for people to change their relationship, and not everyone needs to go sober, which is great. But I think also having someone that's in like their sort of, I guess, like infancy of their journey, to like hear all the fucking amazing shit that's been happening, I think is quite inspirational. So you're saying that like in the last, I suppose, like 7 and a bit months, you know, you're taking your career more seriously. I've certainly started seeing, like I said earlier, seeing your name about a lot more, which is like on like various bookings and events and stuff. And you start to notice, certainly in like in music, as you do as well, Jay, like I'm sure when things start bubbling, and it's no fucking coincidence that it's happening in line with sobriety.
Yeah, you know what's so mad? Like, I found this whiteboard on the streets of Camden, and I used to use this whiteboard to do like hangman, like fucked at 7 a.m. with strangers in the flat, and like throw like, oh my God, I don't know if you want to keep this in, but like I put a target on it and like we throw a dildo at it and like make it stick. But now
dildo
I
darts,
use that. Oh my
That's
God,
good.
ridiculous stuff when you're high. But now I use that whiteboard, and it's all in categories of all my goals and aspirations I want for the year. And within 4 months, I like ticked off goals, took a picture of it, wiped it down, filled it out. I've got Post-it notes on my walls of like with pictures of like my friends and family. I never had pictures of my friends and family up ever. And I've got my Post-it notes all around it of just all the things that I want in life. And I feel like I'm gravitating towards it because I'm actually putting in the effort. I'm putting in the effort with friends and family. I'm remembering birthdays. I'm showing up for celebrations. You know, I've missed 3 Christmases. And, you know, from getting high. Well, I missed last Christmas from getting high. I left Christmas before early to get high with 2 blokes, and the one before that I went out raving, and I booked tickets to go see my family in Brussels.
Amazing.
Do my first cross fingers clean Christmas sober. I'm like, whoa, who is this girl?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's mental.
But it's amazing that, isn't it? Because I found in sobriety, like we've spoken about this so much, being present for family and friends.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think when you're using, you don't think of yourself as selfish. You're like, no, I still text them. I still speak to them on the phone. I'll show up. But even if you show up, you're either hungover or you're on a come down or you're not really present. And that's been the most beautiful thing for me the last 2 and a bit years, is like being present in those moments. And I'll remember Christmases now. I used to go out on Christmas Eve every fucking year and get off my fucking nut. And I'd always make it to Christmas, but I don't really remember many Christmases because I'd just be curled up on the sofa, like feeling like shit.
Mate, me and my mates had to move Christmas Eve to the 23rd because it was so out of hand, and we missed so many fucking Christmases that we started then doing Eve Eve.
You created your own Christmas.
So we used to go out Eve of Eve so we could get fucked up and still be like Christmas Eve, be still going and then call it, rather than like just ruining another Christmas.
It's mental, the fact that you have to like completely like readjust your life to use.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And now I readjust my life for my life.
Yeah.
You know, like it's crazy, and it's brilliant.
What's been your biggest challenges so far?
Sober?
Mm.
You know what? My biggest challenge is because I get FOMO and I still want to go out and party. Like I've only done 2 house parties in 7 months. House parties really trigger me because drugs are so open.
Yeah.
So not being able to go to like birthday celebrations at houses and stuff has been quite difficult. But it's for my own well-being.
Yeah.
And not picking up, and I still get texts from dealers, and there's like a text that I had to send. I was like, I don't participate in narcotic schemes. And I blocked the number.
I've blocked so many dealers.
Yeah, man. And I have to be like, delete this number ASAP, block. But, you know, from the program that I'm in, I'm really, really grateful to have a list of numbers of people that I can call and reach out to.
It's great.
Because before I never had that, you know, I just feel sorry for myself in my room 3-4 days recovering. But now I've got this really strong, beautiful network of people who get it. They get sobriety, they get what it's like being on this journey, and I don't feel alone. So as the months are going on, the days, the minutes, it's becoming a lot easier to readjust. And I think now it's just second nature. I'd say it's actually really beautiful, man. Yeah, the struggles are there from time to time, but that's life. You're gonna have your dark days. You know, this is the first time I'm ill in 7 months. I'm like, no, I forgot I'm human. You know, you know, whereas before I'd be sick all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, you just gotta take life on life terms. You know.
100%.
That's it.
Have you taken on any other stuff? Because obviously, like, career's going really well. Like, have you found yourself doing other stuff in sobriety?
Yeah, I have. Like, I've got 2 businesses on top of DJing. One's We Are Impact, managing artists, and also running the artist development program for the MOBO Awards.
Amazing.
So I'm stuck in with that. And then I've got United Synergies with my best mates Jade and Shaquille. Opening the doors for people in the creative industries, and we do these 3 amazing panels where we just help them interconnect. We did radio, so we had like BBC Radio come down, Capital One Extra, Subtle Radio, and freelancers come down, and bosses in music who work for labels on their own labels come down. And I just want to keep giving back.
Yeah.
I just want to keep giving people the opportunity to really help themselves grow in the industry. I feel like that's what my calling is, as well as DJing too. And I just love helping people. I love people.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can love people not high is sick.
No,
You know what I
totally
mean?
relate. I was going to ask a question about like dressing room culture and like rave culture, because obviously we come from it, and obviously for me managing many dance acts and you playing at many events, like I had to tackle that sober quick because I had to do it for work, and I couldn't, whilst I could tell people what I was doing, I still had to be present. How have you found that? Have people been supportive? Have people been understanding? Like, what's your experience of that so far?
They've been really supportive, actually, because I've like posted about it loads. Everyone knows. When I went to hospitality on the beach, you know, people like would come up to me and they'd be like, "Oh, do you want a drink?" And I'd be like, "Oh my God, no, I'm so sorry, you don't drink." And then I think that was 3 months into sobriety, and now it's like I've got this little group chat of friends. And I was actually supposed to go out last weekend, and I was like, I don't know if I can go. There's a couple of people here that like could trigger me at this event. And they're like, don't worry, Sav, we'll put in precautions. Like, let's just speak to the people, just say, let's not have any like narcotics out on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Keep it in the toilets, you know. There are like people who have been really respectful and like, oh, do you mind if I drink around you? And I'm like, yeah, you can drink around me, just don't get the bag out.
Yeah.
Am I gonna be fine? So yeah, people have been super, super duper respectful. And there's been a couple of people who have not been respectful. And now I just see it as they were just really high. And they've apologized after, but now I know to just not put myself in their vicinity. You know?
I've
So
had it
I'm
a
really
couple
grateful.
of times where like bags have come out. And I think one time in particular, I was in Sydney, and it was like a huge show celebration. I just in a nice way, no one was being disrespectful, but equally I didn't want to mention it because I didn't know a bunch of the people. So you're kind of like, I just removed myself, and I text you actually and my partner, and I was just like, hey, like, I'm okay, but this has happened. It's my first kind of, and that was like nearly 2 years in. It was my first kind of time I'd physically been around it, and I was totally cool, but I just knew to myself, I was like, I'm just gonna, because at that point I was like, I could push through and just be here, but I know that the next few hours are just going to be really tough. So I'll just protect myself.
100.
You know?
People, places and things, you've really got to like, if it means you have to get home early, get home early. If it means go do your gig and leave straight after, that's just how it's going to have to be until we like develop the confidence to stay around it, you know? But I love music. I love raving. I love seeing the people you know, dance and just be themselves. It's actually now become slightly more difficult because I realise how fucked everyone is on the dance.
I know. And I think, I don't know if you've
God.
noticed, but in drum and bass world, I've noticed that ketamine has become a much bigger drug.
Yeah.
So when I was raving, when I was younger, I think we were probably similar-ish age, like it was MDMA and ecstasy, and there was the love, and everyone was like, now it's a very different culture. So I can sometimes be stood on the stage and looking out, and it's almost this like odd zombie, they're like having a good time, but it's a very different reaction. So I'm learning to like
Very different
reprogram
fucked, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very different type
God.
of, yeah, to put it blunt, it is a very different
Yeah.
type of fucked. How have you noticed that more in sobriety of like the dance floor culture changing?
Yeah, I actually did a video about it a month or two ago, that it's been a little bit difficult seeing people like out of their heads and on it, not really enjoying and feeling the music as much. I think I just have to realise I have to just focus on the people that I'm with, focus on my own bubble, and if it gets too much, I just leave. But I did go to a sober drum and bass event like 2 weeks ago called
Tell us
Sober
more.
93.
Sick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like not like the fridges were like stocked of 0% beers, Red Bulls, ginger beers, soft drinks. Everyone was just dancing and having a good time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna be playing actually at the one in January, which is sick.
Hell yeah. I genuinely, please let me know. I would love to come to
Yes,
that. I would love to come
definitely.
down. Because
I'll
I
let you guys know.
fucking love dance. Like, I've always loved dancing. It's sort of my way of escaping. And I think I said to you, Tom, at Reading, I was watching Freddie I'd watched Ray, and everyone around me was really fucked, and I really struggled with it because, not because I wanted to get fucked, I just felt claustrophobic. And then Freddie again was playing, and I just got so into it. And my partner doesn't drink, and the people around me weren't drunk, and I just kind of closed my eyes and I just like danced for like an hour and a half, and I was like, I need to do more of that because I feel really free with it. And in sobriety I thought I wouldn't, but I actually like dancing more
Yeah.
sober.
Yeah,
But it's hard
great.
sometimes to do when you are at raves because I do sometimes feel like a little bit in like a fucked prison where everyone's just like off their nut around me.
Yeah.
So that sounds amazing. I'd love to come down to that.
Yeah, 100. I'll definitely let you know about it. I also go to raves with people who are dedicated to just being sober with me.
Sick.
And it's mad because you think we're on like 3 bags. The way I dance around, like on stage, off stage, in the middle. And I love live music. Like I love metal, indie, rock. So I'm always the first one in the mosh pit. You know, like I can just do all that stuff and feel that, like you say, like it feels good to go out sober and listen to music. You have much more of appreciation for it.
100%.
You know, but still no judgment towards anyone who does do it. I just feel like do you at the end of the day, so long as you don't cause yourself harm in the process. But I'm gonna do me.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because like, I've done Ibiza a lot now. I'm very comfortable there sober now. But it's also a place where I did a lot of drugs. And it's so ingrained in dance music culture, especially in Ibiza, like ecstasy, pills. It's like, you know, when I suppose you go into some of those clubs like the DC-10s of the world, you know, there's probably, I would say 70 to 80% of people are probably on some form of MDMA or ecstasy.
Yeah.
But the whole MO in Ibiza has always been to have fun, even with that side of stuff. And I feel like because that's the MO, doing that sober, you still do that. So it's been so nice being out there. I mean, I had my stag do out there,
Oh,
and we had
sick.
what 22 of us
Yeah.
out there, and like it was sick. And I think like 7 of us were sober.
Yeah.
I think, well, certainly...
That says more for our friendship group than it does.
7 of us went there sober. I think 5 returned sober. So there were a couple of casualties, but they were, you know, not in recovery programs. I think doing it for other alternatives, and I think got a bit carried away. But like, I think it's amazing to be able to go to a place like that, and it just goes to show that actually, like, you can go anywhere now, and even a place like that, which is ingrained in culture.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do it.
Yeah, if you truly love the music, and if you truly love the people that you're with, you don't need it. Nothing else matters.
No.
Nothing else matters. Because I find that if I go to a gig or to a rave and it's music that I don't particularly like I can't stay because I don't like it, you know?
So true.
And then I'm not forced to stay, forced to drink, forced to take drugs just to enjoy it, spending all my money unnecessarily in a vibe that I don't like. Now all my time and attention goes to surrounding myself with people who I love, meeting new people that I know I like, and like listening to good fucking music, you know? Like there's just so much more. What's the word that I'm looking for? Help me out.
Authenticity.
Yeah, there we go.
It's like, pick one out. I was going to ask you a question though, because I think mine and yours using may have been similar-ish in the sense that I used to listen to music constantly when I was fucked. I'd come home, put music on, like do whatever. And I thought that was me really connecting to music. And it's only been in my sobriety that music has taken a different level of love to me. And music's always been the biggest thing in my life. But when I was fucked, I thought I was like, oh yeah, really connecting to this song. But actually now I'm sober, I'm like, oh no, I was just connecting to how I was feeling here, or how I thought it made me feel. Whereas now I feel music a lot more. Do you feel more connected to music in sobriety?
I feel so connected to music, honestly. And I realised I was actually listening to a lot of like suicidal music when I was using. Now I'm sober, I'm listening to the songs I used to listen to. And I'm like, oh my God, I was in a really dark place. You know, it's like I'm becoming a lot more conscious of what I'm listening to now. And I don't know if it's because I'm DJing more, but my housemate actually said it. She walked in and I was doing work and she was like, usually you've got music on, it's quiet. I was like, oh my God, it is quiet. I'm like, now if I listen to music, I'm either like, I'm starting to make music now, I'm DJing music, I'm out listening to it. But when I'm home, unless I'm in the shower or getting ready, I don't listen to music. I'm much more comfortable with myself.
I'm the exact same.
Like in my head with my thoughts. I'm like, oh my God, I never used to listen to my thoughts before. I'd always have something drowning it out.
It's interesting, isn't it? I'm the same. Like, I've started like actually playing guitar more at home, which is like what I just grew up doing. And it's like now, because it's been, I suppose, like a job for a long time, it's quite hard to differentiate between like a job and hobby and like love. And I think in sobriety I've definitely like sort of found a bit more love for like guitar again, and as well as going to way more gigs. I mean, we went to like last year so many festivals like Slam Dunk, Download.
Oh, I went
like,
Slam Dunk. Yeah, so good.
And it was a sick time.
Yeah, it was great. And it's like, you know, going to all this like stuff and I'm buying tickets and like, you know, for fucking, you know, going to Slipknot, going to see Deftones, Weezer, like Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Like,
Embrace your inner goth, baby.
like for bringing it back and like,
Literally.
you know, going to so much stuff. And I'm like, yeah, sick. I'm like, you know, a few years ago, I would have just been like, oh, you know, yeah, I'll go, but it's just an excuse to get fucked up, really.
Yeah, or if you can't get a guest list, you don't bother.
Go, yeah.
Whereas
wouldn't
now
bother.
I'm like, I love buying tickets. I'm well excited. Like my favorite band in the world, Incubus, just announced their like second album in full, which is or third album in full, sorry. And I was there at fucking 9 a.m. like sign up to the pre-sale. I was like, come on. And I got the same serotonin boost of getting those tickets I did from like getting off my fucking
Mate, it's true. I love buying
Literally.
tickets now. I love buying tickets. And
same.
like, I'll only try and call in the guest list if I've literally sold out and I'm like
Yeah,
stuck
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, right, let's put the call in. And
Yeah,
like, you know, try
100.
and sort it out. But like, yeah, it's great. Like that's, you know, that you're comfortable and, you know, you don't have to be at home and have that on the whole time. So,
exactly.
Which is great.
I'm really happy you guys mentioned the live music aspect because I was the same. I was like, no guest list, I'm not going. But now I've got so much love for live music more. Like I've never bought so many live music tickets in my life. I'm like at gigs consistently now. There's a few gigs that I wish I could be going to, like Slipknot on Sleep Token, but I've seen them already, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just great that I can afford it.
Yeah,
I can afford to go, and when I do go, I'm in it for them. I'm in it for my surroundings. It's sick.
I love that. Question: what's the weirdest hobby you've taken up since going sober?
Oh God, what have I taken up whilst going sober? What's the weirdest?
You might not be inherently weird like me and Jamie. So there might not be anything.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest hobby?
Or has something replaced? Like, have you found a new? I don't say addiction, but a new thing that's like a new way of doing things.
It's just DJing, guys.
Yeah.
It's literally just DJing. But from when I was young, I always found a way to monetize my hobbies. So now I do it as a profession,
I love that.
which is
That's
cool.
great.
You
How do I
know?
monetize running and coffee?
I'm actually on a mission at the moment because I've really got into golf, and
Oh, cool.
there's something I'm launching soon, which again is very much on that. All my mates are saying, "How do you just keep monetizing shit that you enjoy doing?" I'm like,
Except podcasting, which costs us thousands.
Except
of pounds.
podcasting, which is doing us in the hole. But anyway, that's fine.
I have taken up squash though. I do
Hey,
do squash.
see?
Squash.
See?
Yeah.
There
I
you
never
go.
used to do squash. It's sick because you're bouncing around, bumping into each other, bumping into walls, like on the floor, up in the air. So yeah, squash is sick.
I love squash.
Yeah,
It's quite
squash
a
is
violent
wicked.
sport.
I love
Like
it.
it gets out the anger. Do you like squash?
I love squash.
Do you want to play? Why don't we play squash? Because I
You
can't play
should.
golf.
You can play
Because that's
squash.
not a bit of me, but I'll play squash.
You
wanna
should
get your
definitely.
We'll all play
We'll play,
together.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
You
there you
should
go.
definitely
Game
play
on.
squash.
We'll live stream it.
Yeah, fine. Pod live stream. Me, Jamie.
Place your bets.
do it, man. It's sick. And if you have to bump into each other, rip each other's hair out, do what needs to be done
Yeah, absolutely.
to get that
Death on the
ball.
court.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's wicked.
that's cool. I think it might be approaching.
Approaching time for the big three.
I think so.
Oh, cool.
So, for any of our listeners that are thinking of going on a journey of sobriety, what would your single best piece of advice be?
Yeah, I would say if you're entering sober world, think carefully about what your next chapter is going to look like, because there are going to be some friends that you may have to let go. There are going to be some places that you may not be able to attend anymore. And there are going to be some habits that will slowly fall off. So, you know, take it easy on yourself. It's a slow process. Don't rush it. Just take your time with it. And also find a community that you'll be able to call if times do get rough, because they may get rough. You know, with me, I've got my 12-step program, but there are beautiful communities out there with people that you can reach out to who can help you navigate changing those people, places, and things. You don't have to do it alone.
Amazing.
Love
That's
that.
really, really great
Yeah,
advice.
that's top tier advice.
What is the single best thing that sobriety has given you?
Oh, what's the single? Oh, it's going to be hard to choose because there's so many. I'd say, like we were talking about before, being present, because I feel like I can cheat with this one, because I can be present with everything now. I'm just so hyper aware of my surroundings. I'm there for my friends, my family, my career. I can communicate better. So it's just given me, sobriety has given me clarity to be present with oneself, and I love it.
Amazing.
That is beautiful.
That's great. And Jamie, number 3.
The big one. Finally, we would love Savannah to write a letter to drunk Savannah. So what would you say if you could start? Dear Savannah.
Okay. Dear Savannah, I know times were, or I guess are, lonely. I know it's hard to figure out who you are, where you stand in the world, what makes you feel fulfilled and happy. And I know you've been trying to find that through narcotics and alcohol and people who don't really serve your life very well. But fear not, my child. Fear not. A wonderful, wonderful world is waiting for you with people who love you and cherish you, a career that's gonna skyrocket if you keep your head on straight, and a life that you've always known that you've deserved, and people have actually told you you've deserved, you just never believed it. But yeah, it's gonna come a time where you're really gonna believe in yourself, and there's gonna be no looking back. So you got this, kiddo. You got this.
I think that might be my favourite letter yet.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
No, it's amazing. Like you say, it's amazing to see you just popping up everywhere at the minute. So I'm sure by the time this airs, you will have achieved a million more things.
Thank you.
Already.
Thank you. So big up to your listeners and big up to you guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you
so much.